county officials are reminding folks that there's still time to evacuate. We want to bring in Fox Weather storm specialist Mike Seidel. He's in Madeira Beach this morning. Mike, not sure if you heard, we were just talking to Dylan Hubbard with Hubbard's Marina in Madeira Beach, staying put, saying that he's at a decent elevation. But what we're expecting with Milton, it's going to be such a close call where we could see Milton's worst in Madeira Beach.
Yeah, we're not sure if it's going to be worse here or to our south, down towards Manatee or Sarasota counties. And I will tell you, we're not going to be on the beach after about 1 p.m. Eastern today. We're going to be heading away from the beach and inland. Meanwhile, palm trees getting whisked around by winds right now. They're offshore winds, east-northeast at the area airport, Sarasota, St. Pete, Tampa, and they're gusting as high as 33 miles an hour. So we already have a pretty good gradient between the hurricane and that high to the north, which has brought the great weather to the southeast. And by the way, this has no way of getting up there because of that, so the Carolinas are fine. There's the Gulf of Mexico. We're starting to see some breakers out there, about 2 feet, maybe pushing 3 at times, but the swell really has not come in yet at this point from Milton, which is still several hundred miles away, and it will, though, through the afternoon. You notice the beach has been decimated. There's a lot of sand missing. You can see that right here. Look at these palm trees. The root balls are above ground. The sand should be up about here. You can even see the watering, the irrigation pipes on top of the beach. So just a real mess. Even if you clean it up, the sand will naturally replenish, but boy, we've got another one coming in this afternoon. By the way, thinking of traveling and evacuating or just getting around, the 4 main bridges are going to be closing this afternoon. The Sunshine Skyway Bridge, 45-mile-an-hour sustained winds. They shut that down. That's, I believe, 275. Also, the Gandy Bridge, the Howard Franklin Bridge, and then the Courtney Campbell Causeway that goes out to Clearwater. They're going to close that, too, at some point. DOT keeps an eye on it, also the Florida Highway Patrol. So those bridges will be closed by certainly mid to late afternoon. And as far as the storms right now, they're offshore moving north. You can see on the radar, we've got lightning out there and the risk of waterspouts. There is a marine warning covering basically the whole coast from Lee and Collier County all the way up to Tarpon Springs. And the one in this area goes until 11 o'clock. Again, for mariners, I don't know who would be silly enough to be out there, but these storms can produce waterspouts. Right now, though, they're moving basically parallel to the Gulf Coast of Florida and not our way. But eventually, as these tropical squalls, the outer bands come in, we'll start to get those wind gusts 40, 50 miles an hour, and eventually strong enough to likely, very likely, Steve, knock out the power once again. And rainfall, by the way, local rain gauges already have 1 to 2 inches of rain, and we're a long way from the direct impact of Milton, with a forecast here between 1 foot and 18 inches of rain, with that flood watch up until tomorrow morning.
If we were curious what an expanding Milton would look like, we have to look no further than what's happening currently. It's been impressive to watch as that rain is getting tapped, the dynamics at play that we have with the front and the jet, allowing some of that moisture, rich tropical moisture, to now fall well ahead of where Milton's core is. Well, Mike, we will be watching it pretty carefully. Thank you for that update. Fox Weather's Mike Seidel from Madeira Beach this morning. All right. Officials are reminding people this morning that there's still some time to evacuate, but that's closing. Fox Weather storm specialist Mike Seidel live from Madeira Beach, Florida this morning. Mike, that rain's moving in, this storm's expanding, and that rain's going to be around for a while now.
Yeah, so we've already had gauges locally with over 2 inches of rain, and we've got a long way to go. I just did some mathematics. The center, the eye of Milton's about 160 miles southwest of where we're standing, and if you divide that by about 17 miles an hour, you get about 9.5 hours, which puts a landfall, if it was coming right here, at about 8 to 8:30 Eastern, but it's probably going to landfall a bit south of here. Bottom line is, it's going to be an early evening landfall and not as late as we had originally thought. That's what I'm thinking. That's what we're thinking of Fox Weather, which it's still going to be dark out, but at least it comes in a bit sooner. What we already have is all the rainfall. It's already ponding up on the roadway here. Now, this is the other major issue. They were not able to get all of that debris from Milton off the streets. They did Gulf Boulevard out there, but here, these neighborhoods, as far as the eye can see, every direction, piles of debris. What's going to happen? Well, that surge is going to come in, and now 8 to 12 feet. We'll see how high it gets. And then we have the winds on top of the surge. 100-mile-an-hour wind gusts, not out of the question this evening. And so we're going to have projectiles. All of this is going to start floating around, and then the wind's going to subside overnight. The surge goes back into the Gulf of Mexico, and whatever's floating around just stops and just sits in the roadways, in the parking lots, and the front yards. So it's going to be another massive cleanup operation. Again, as I mentioned yesterday, all the contents of these homes are out on the street. So the damage in the homes really can't get any worse. They've already been hit with all that salt water. If that's any, that's one little glimmer that we're not going to have to do anything that we haven't already done, because Helene hit, it'll be 2 weeks ago tomorrow night. So they haven't had time to really do any remediation and rebuilding. The rainfall continues to come here and there. Now, along and off the coast, we have another special marine warning. It goes out about 70 miles, and that covers all the areas from Tarpon Springs south for waterspouts. Now, most of the storms are moving north, a little tint to the northwest towards the coast. We've seen lightning out there this morning, and again, that is an issue as those waterspouts potentially come on land. They become tornadoes. But we have the tornado watch here till 9, especially concerned right now for those areas in the central part of the state, outside of Lake Okeechobee, where we've got those individual cells, and we already had that tornado confirmed there in Broward County around sunrise this morning. So a lot to take in here, but the main issue is the surge and the winds. Those are the two main issues. And then what happens with all this debris? And then you get away from the surge zone, the 12 to 15 plus inches of rainfall with that flood watch up. The best bet is if you're in a house here in this area, stay home, stay off the road, stay out of just stay home and stay away from the windows and avoid flying projectiles, Stephen. A lot to come in here in the next 8 hours, and it's really going to be quite breathtaking to see what we end up with here as far as surge and what the picture is going to look like tomorrow morning at first light, where all this debris ends up on Thursday morning.
That's the concerning thing, even when we focus real closely on where that landfall is going to occur. If this thing's just a little farther to the south, the heavy rain potential that you guys have there in Madeira Beach is going to skyrocket. I mean, a 12 to 18-inch rain, that's nothing to ignore. And we've got some pretty heavy rain that's about to move through as it's raining right now there, Mike. We appreciate it. Fox Weather Storm Specialist Mike Seidel from Madeira Beach. What Mike didn't see, we were showing a 2-box. This is just off of
Let me take you out there to Madeira Beach in Florida. Mike Seidel's been out there for the last several days. Mike, I thought they closed down the barrier islands, but you're still out there, huh?
Yeah, we've got a safe location here. We're going to be heading to a better spot. We were on the beach for a little bit. Beaches are still fine. I mean, the water hasn't come up yet. We're well ahead of the game. The swell's about 2 to 3 feet. There's the Gulf about a block and a half away. We're going to be heading farther inland. So that Gulf's going to come in here tonight. And the concern, Bob, is this. All of this debris is still around. Yes, we showed you the cleaning up of Gulf Boulevard yesterday. Big front-end loaders, bulldozers, and trucks. So that's been scraped. I don't know how far they got before it got dark, but they're not working today, obviously, with this kind of weather coming in. But look at this. We've got everybody's personal items have been taken out of the homes. So there's nothing left to come out of the homes. It's sitting out here. We're going to have the surge coming in here starting later this afternoon into this evening and tonight. Then we're going to have the winds increasing. So we're going to have all this debris floating around. Now, some of it won't float that much because it's just heavy steel. But we've seen, we've seen those trash dumpsters get pushed by surge water before. And then we're going to superimpose on the surge and the floating debris 100-mile-an-hour wind gusts, and we get flying projectiles. So it's going to be a real nightmare out here. That's why we're going to head for cover, a safe location with plenty of elevation. But that's what we're dealing with. And then we wake up tomorrow morning and everything calms down, but what left behind is a bunch of sand again. They'll probably have to bring the bulldozers in like they did with Helene just 13 days ago. And all of this is going to be somewhere. It's going to float somewhere. It's going to be blown somewhere. It's going to be redeposited. So, Bob, a lot of issues here. We've already had a couple of inches of rain at various personal rain gauges. Winds have gusted 30 to 35. They're offshore winds right now, but that will change as Milton gets closer during the late afternoon hours. And we've already had some lightning and thunder. Right now, we've got that special marine warning. They keep extending it right off the coast. Those are some nasty bands. Now, they're basically moving south to north. There is some there I almost lost my fox head. Would have blown out into the bay or into the Gulf. There is some component towards the land, but those storms out there can produce water spouts, and that marine warning goes until 1 p.m. No doubt they'll extend that, Bob, and we're all here under a tornado watch till 9. So a lot to get into, but again, the big issue is the surge, plus the wind, plus the debris, and that's going to be a combination that will be literally horrific later this evening and tonight here on these barrier islands of Pinellas County.
Yeah, Mike, one question for you. You've been watching all the debris being picked up over the last 2 days. Has there been a sizable dent in what is left? Is there anything left that could be a problem for us overnight tonight?
Oh, there was so much debris, Bob. They cleaned up Gulf Boulevard, and I don't know how far they went. And, you know, there's different towns. Just a few blocks up the beach, you're into Reddington Beach from Madeira Beach. So there's all these little municipalities, and the neighborhoods, I've been driving around, it's all still here. They were basically taking care of the main road, but what you see here, blocks and blocks and blocks of debris from these neighborhood homes. These are more residential back here on the beach. You can see here high-rise condos, apartments, where most of those are in good shape except for the lower level. But a lot of the buildings right on the beach are more hurricane-proof. These, as you can see, are sitting right at ground level, maybe a few feet above sea level, and just got toasted by that salt water. I've seen the lines on the wall there, and I'm gonna walk over here. I think we can get over here real quick. And Bob, I'll try to show you where the water line is.
Yeah.
On this particular house. And right about here, it's about 3.5, 4 feet. So that was where the surge was with Helene 13 days ago this afternoon. So it wasn't 10 feet or 12 feet. Now they're forecasting now 8 to 12. So that's about 4.5. So potentially more than double that. And there you go. But like I said, there's nothing really in these homes now. It's all out here, just waiting to be redistributed by the surge and the wind from Hurricane Milton. And we'll be showing what we can and being safe later today and tonight on Fox Weather and Fox News.
Yes, sir. Michael, it's good to talk to you. We will check back in with you again. I appreciate the report. Let's bring in Nick Koser also, and we know that this let me bring it out to the west coast of Florida. Let's go to Madeira Beach. Mike Seidel is out there, and it's amazing, Mike. Here you are on the west side looking at the Gulf area. Here I am looking at the Atlantic, and it's about the same thing. What a storm.
Yeah, it goes to show you how the wind field's spreading out. Also, we still have an offshore wind, Gulf of Mexico about 1.5 blocks that way, and our winds are still northeast. So right now the water is being pushed out, but as the hurricane draws closer, it is right now about 115 miles away from where we're standing. So if you do the mathematics, you're thinking landfall, 8, 9 o'clock this evening, assuming the speed remains constant. So we've got a long way to go. We're not even in the outer eye wall yet, and these winds are blowing about 20 miles an hour. We did have a peak gust in the area of 56, one of the personal weather stations, and I've been checking some of the weather obs down the coast, Lee, Collier County, Fort Myers Beach, one of those weather stations there, clocked an 87-mile-an-hour wind gust with those squalls rolling through down there. Down there it's squallier. We're getting more rotation. That's where we're getting more of the twister action. And up here is just a solid shield of rain, and it's going to be like this for a while. And the other issue we've been talking about for several days is the fact that Helene's damage remains. Piles and piles of debris everywhere as the wind now starting to blow me down the street a little bit. And this is one of the piles outside our hotel, which, by the way, is a huge concrete fortified building. It's relatively new, just several years old, and we're feeling very safe there for the duration of Milton. So you've got all this debris here. Surge coming in from the Gulf of Mexico. Multiple inches of rain. In fact, in this area, we've had now just over 4 inches of rain, and we've got, again, hours and hours of rainfall as it really starts to come down now. So this stuff is going to start floating and blowing around, and this is nothing. I mean, we got a couple piles here in camera range, but you get back into the neighborhoods where we were this morning, and it is just everywhere. It's just solid piles of debris. They were not able to even come close to putting a dent in the damage from Helene from 13 days ago. They did clean up Gulf Boulevard, where we could see yesterday, the main thoroughfare up and down the barrier island. But other than that, it's going to be very interesting and certainly kind of sad. Tomorrow morning, wake up with the storm out of the way, sand, leftover water, and also debris probably all over the place. It's got to go somewhere. It's going to be floating around. The fact that we don't have a lot in this area, it may not be too bad right here, but I know the neighborhoods, Bob, are going to be just awful and probably impossible to get around until they get bulldozers in to scrape the debris off the roads. Last week, or week before last with Helene, all they had to do was scrape the sand off the roads. This time they have the sand coming in and they have all the debris that's going to end up somewhere in these areas.
Yeah, Mike, that's going to be the main thing. As I'm looking behind me, Mike, the winds are picking up. It is just one of the situations here where it's going to be a very difficult go. If you're not in your right spot, Mike Seidel, thanks a lot. He's out there in Madeira Beach. We'll get back with you.
This is just north of St. Pete Beach, Mike. So the cone is shifted in your direction some. It's going to be a close call whether you get that eye wall or you get that incoming surge. It's a little too close to call still.
Well, certainly we're getting the outer eye wall. We're several bands from the eye. We're about 58 miles plus or minus from the eastern fringe of the eye. So we've got another several hours before we're get in the eye wall or just miss it. Either way, we're going to have these wind gusts in excess of 100 miles an hour coming at us here in the next few hours. The surge is going to be a bit delayed because we still have an offshore wind. It's going to take until the eye wall gets near or over us and we start to get an onshore flow, and that is going to push the Gulf of Mexico into these barrier islands in Pinellas County. We're about a block and a half from the beach, and I expect water to come down the street like it did with Helene. The water here was about 3 to 4 feet deep right here at the edge of the hotel. Meanwhile, we're watching for possible water spouts. Right now, we don't have any marine warnings offshore. We've had those through the afternoon and evening. We do have a flash flood warning till 5:30. They'll likely extend that. There's a tornado watch till 9. And that covers most of the Florida Peninsula, and that will likely be extended. Maybe not for the exact same areas, but it's amazing how we're getting some of these stronger tornadoes. You don't usually see stronger tornadoes in a tropical system. Usually zeros, EF0s, EF1s, and EF2s, but we're getting some pretty, at least based on visuals. I saw the wedge tornado that touched down earlier today in South Florida, and that looked like something out of the plains of Oklahoma or Nebraska. Watching the wind, it's blowing this way. There is no debris upwind from me, so I feel pretty safe right here. But eventually, when the surge comes in and we have the winds coming in from that direction, so I'm looking basically east, and the winds are going to come around from the east, which they are right now. They've gone northeast to east at my back, so they're blowing east to west right now. Eventually, they'll come around in this direction from the southwest. That'll blow the water in and also start picking up this debris. Some of this is going to start floating. That's a given. And there's debris everywhere in the neighborhoods here in Madeira Beach and other nearby communities that they were not able to get up. It's only been 13 days since Helene made landfall up there at Keaton Beach. We were up there in Perry 2 weeks ago tonight, and we had a wind gust to 99. That was a 140 mile an hour Cat 4 that came in. We'll see how this one ends up. Now down to 120. If it goes down to 110, that's the top edge of a Cat 2. We'll see if it drops that far before it makes landfall. Bottom line is we still got a very dangerous hurricane here, and we've got all the surge ahead of us. It's just not even begun here in the Tampa-St. Pete area because of the offshore winds. And also, Jane, we've got a lot of rainfall inland. So if you're not dealing with the surge, we're going to be dealing with a foot or more rain with localized flash flooding, and then down the road, that all goes into the rivers, and the rivers will come up, and that'll take a while to come down. So even though the flash flooding will be out of the way tomorrow here, long gone tomorrow, we're going to have to deal with the rivers like the St. John's up there in the Jacksonville area, and other rivers from there south, which get a foot or maybe even 15 inches of rainfall.
Mike, 2.5 inches of rain for you just last 3 hours, which is incredible. Flash flood warning in place for a reason. But I wanted you to speak to, if you can, real quickly, the vulnerability of where you're at, because you talk about Helene and how much damage. We see it, the debris out there. That has to make every one of these communities that much more vulnerable to damage.
Well, first of all, you have to remember, all the debris you see came from inside the buildings as they remediated. You know, everything had to be pulled out, drywall, everything's ruined from the salt water. A lot of this stuff is from the U.S. Post Office next door to the hotel. So all the condos and homes and first floor businesses like on this street, condos meaning the lower levels that got the saltwater intrusion, the surge, those first floors and these lower levels, there's nothing in them. So there's not going to be any additional debris really to bring out after Milton goes by tonight and early tomorrow morning. The problem is all the debris they brought out is still sitting here, and that's going to be redistributed by the wind and the water. And, you know, worst case scenario, the bulldozers come out in the morning and go down these neighborhood streets, or as soon as they can, to open up the streets so people can get back to what they were doing until yesterday. And now they have to come back and, well, start again from starting the process of rebuilding and reconstructing.
All right, Fox Weather Storm Specialist Mike Seidel, we'll check back in with you shortly, but we want to get to a confirmed tornado on the East Coast right now. There is video coming in that this tornado, you are in the midst of some of the worst of these bands pushing on shore. What are the conditions?
Yes, indeed. We've had a gust now to 60 at St. Pete, so they are ramping up. The rain comes and goes. It's raining fairly hard right now. St. Pete Airport has had now just over 5 inches of rain since this started. Some of that falling last night and this morning, but it really has come down hard over the past couple of hours, about nearly 2.5 inches in, was it 3 hours? So the rain comes down, we've got the flash flood warning, the flood watch goes until tomorrow morning, and boy, just the sustained winds right now are pushing hurricane force, which is 39 miles an hour. And talk about the power of water. We know what water can do. You know when you get on the beach in the ocean, a 3-foot wave just knocks you down. But what about surge? Well, see this container out here? It says Red Rover out here in the median. Well, that was put there by the surge from Helene just about 2 weeks ago. It was sitting over here behind me in the middle of the parking lot. So it floated from there over there, and that thing is not light. These two containers were delivered after Helene, so they were just delivered. We've got debris everywhere in the neighborhood. Gulf Boulevard, they cleaned off a lot of that yesterday. But here's this pile of debris. A lot of this is from these businesses here. And as I keep mentioning, you know, these businesses have had, you know, just catastrophic damage interior. So everything's out here now, so there's not going to be anything else to pull out really after we get rid of this next surge. But this is sitting here just waiting to float and blow. So we're going to have projectiles probably and things all over the place, I think, in the morning at first light. And also we're going to bring more sand in from the beach. Now, you heard Jane mention that the surge in Naples is now up to 3 feet. So that surge is going to work up here. The reason we're not getting a surge yet is because the wind is still blowing offshore. It was northeast, it's now more east. Once the hurricane moves on shore, we'll start to get the backwash around the bottom, say from around, on the clock, around 4 o'clock, around 8 or 9 o'clock. So south to southwest wind, and that will push the water in to the coast, the barrier islands, the nooks and crannies, Tampa Bay, for instance. So that's when we're going to get the surge. It's going to be a while. We're about 2.5 hours or so, plus or minus a half an hour from the eye making landfall, and it looks like it's going to make it in Pinellas County, maybe down in Manatee County, depending on if it wobbles. But you can see on the radar right now, we're in the direct line of the inner eye wall. So regardless if we get in the eye wall and the rain stops for a while and the wind backs off, we're still going to have the impacts, the significant impacts from the rain, especially the interior areas where they're going to get upwards of 1 foot to 18 inches of rain, so the flash flooding will be widespread there. And I mentioned the rivers. It'll be a delayed process for the flooding, and that will take a while to go down. Tomorrow morning, I expect there'll be some standing water out here, but the Gulf, the salt water will try to get back into the Gulf of Mexico. Jane, we've got about 4 or 5 more really rough hours with the wind, And then after that, it's the surge, which will eventually come in. Once we start to see the winds, Jane, to feel the winds coming in from the south and southwest, then we'll start to see the water come over the dune and down the road. And that's what we're going to be seeing later on this evening right here on Fox Weather. Jane, back to you.
It is eerie as you're closing in on these final hours of daylight, too, knowing that the worst is still ahead of you. Mike, of course, as always, I know you will stay safe, but we are going to be checking back in with you as the worst of Milton is still to come. Well,
weather hurricane specialist, that's Mike Seidel. He's in Madeira Beach. And Mike, I've been hearing your reports. I see it now. It has been powerful. What are you feeling right now?
Still the stinging rain, and we have now had a wind gust to 77 miles an hour down at the Sarasota-Bradenton Airport. So that may be where it comes in. In fact, the edge of the eye wall, look at the radar, is right now near the coast, near Anna Maria Island, and you go down to Lido Beach, that whole area. I should say Lido Key, and where we are, we may not quite get into the eye, but we're in the eye wall, or we'll be in the eye wall, or like right now. The winds are gusting about 60 miles an hour at times. The rain has been unrelenting. SRQ, Sarasota Bradenton, has had about 7 inches of rain today. And here we've had 3 inches of rain in 2 hours. So there's a lot of standing water, but it seems to be draining at least okay right now. The concern is when these winds shift from east and then on to an onshore flow south and southwest, that's going to bring the surge in. So that's what we're waiting for. It hasn't started yet. We've got to get the storm biased before the winds will come back around from the onshore direction, and that's going to push the water up. That is really the big question here. Not so much the wind. We know we're going to have the wind in the Tampa Bay area, but how much surge inundates those nooks and crannies around Tampa Bay? Are the numbers higher than last time, which were records in most locations? Clearwater Beach, 8.6. Beating the earlier record of 6.8. Do they get higher than that? Let's hope not. But the chances are that they could. Right now, the Hurricane Center forecasting a surge in the Tampa Bay area of 8 to 12 feet. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that it doesn't get any higher than it did with Helene. Now remember, all the debris that has been put out on the streets with Helene, it's still all over the area here, all over the neighborhoods. Gulf Boulevard's in pretty good shape. In fact, now that we're losing light, I can still barely see the beach, so the visibility has come up a bit. But this is the situation. You've got all this debris sitting here, and when the surge comes in, it's going to start floating. At least some of it will start floating, and then the wind may pick it up and blow it somewhere. Even if it doesn't get blown somewhere, all that debris in these neighborhoods is going to be floating around, and then when the surge backs off after midnight tonight, then it's just going to sit and get deposited where it was. And in the morning, they may have to get out the heavy equipment to scrape off the streets to get the roads back open, because it's all just everywhere in this area. So, Steve, the worst still on the way here as far as the strongest wind gust, more heavy rain, and then the surge coming in here in a few hours once the center goes bias and the winds come onshore here in Pinellas County. But right now, the water, the Gulf, is staying put until we get that shift in wind direction.
Yeah, and Mike, I want to ask you something, because you have so much experience and you've been in Florida this year dealing with these storms, whether it was Debbie or Helene. Those ran parallel to the shore, right? We know this one's coming in perpendicular. It's going to be potentially a direct hit for one of those areas that you mentioned. How does that change that type of storm surge threat that you're worried about there in Madeira and we have all throughout the Bay Area and Southwest Florida?
Well, if it comes at more of a right angle, it's got more of a push right at the coast. If it comes in and goes by the coast like Helene did, about 100 miles, I believe, off the coast, it doesn't have the push in. It does have a push, but not, the storm's not pushing it in. It's just the winds around it, pushing that water up into the Tampa Bay and the beaches. Now, I remember in Steinhatchee, we took Debbie's eye and eye wall, and the surge was delayed for the same reason. We had an offshore wind, and then the wind came onshore, and the surge came up after the eye. Well, the surge started coming up during the eye wall, but basically the highest surge with Debbie in Steinhatchee was after the eye wall went over us and went up towards the Live Oak area. So there's a delay here because it's really all about the wind direction. You know, if we stayed offshore, we wouldn't have a surge, but it is going to come back around once the storm goes by, once Milton goes by, and that's what our concern is, that surge in the Tampa Bay area. Fingers crossed. We'll see how it shakes out, but it seems that it's going to go in just south of Tampa Bay. Well, that's the way it looks right now on the radar. We still have a couple more hours. It may still wobble. That doesn't mean there won't be any surge at all, but it does take a little edge off the top numbers.
Yeah, and every little edge matters. Mike, we've been here in Tampa, and it's that fresh water right now, the rain, which has been a big concern. You can't even release it out fast enough. If you add storm surge, we'd have a big concern on our hands, something we'll be watching closely. Mike Seidel, Fox Weather hurricane specialist out in Madeira Beach. We'll continue to check in with you. I want to show you what it looks like closer to Milton when we have these Madeira Beach, Florida, and bring in Fox Weather hurricane specialist. That is Mike Seidel. Mike, every vantage point we've seen, this has really started to enhance, and it looks like it's really deteriorated for you as well.
Yes, indeed, Steve. We're in the eye wall right now on the north side. You can see on the radar where the eye is. It's just off the coast, right along the coast, down in Manatee and Sarasota counties, up here in Pinellas County. It's all about the wind and the rain on the north side. Even kind of a chill tonight. This is not one of those summer hurricanes where temperatures are in the low 80s. It's down about 74, 75, and we still have the east wind. And that is a good thing because that's going to keep the water out. And as Brian Norcross mentioned, if it does continue its trek in just to our south, we're not going to get the surge that was forecast, thank goodness, on the Pinellas County beaches and up north, because the wind's going to stay offshore until the storm goes by Tampa, and then eventually we'll get a west to southwest wind. But by that point, it's not possible to get those 8 to 12 foot numbers. So at this point, we're looking better and better. We're not out of the woods yet, and certainly not from the rain and wind department. We've now had another inch plus at St. Petersburg Airport between 6 and 7 Eastern. They're now over 8 inches of rain today. We're forecasting 12 to 18 inches. Flood watches are up across a good chunk of the Florida Peninsula, along with that tornado watch till 9, and we'll see where it sets up when they extend it, because they will extend it, the Storm Prediction Center, at 9 Eastern. Right now it covers just about all of the peninsula, with just this howling wind blowing right to the Gulf of Mexico. So right now the beaches, you can still see them, and we're hoping that holds, and once the storm goes by, Steve, we will get an onshore flow, but at that point we're going to miss the major push of water like they're seeing south of here, as Robert Ray mentioned, as you go from the areas in Manatee and Sarasota County down towards Fort Myers and Naples. The other thing we've noticed, we did see something flash over there. The power is still on here on the island, but on the beach rather, Madeira Beach, but I did notice that about 7%, at last check, 7% of residents in Pinellas County are without power. That's not bad, 7%. We'll take it. We'll see how things shake out in the next few hours as we keep up with these hurricane force wind gusts. So Steve, right now a positive vibe, a little bit of a positive vibe because of that track for us here in Pinellas County on the beaches, but we still have to get through the next few hours of the wind and the power outages. And we'll be right here, staying safe. We've got our safe spot if necessary to head inside, but all we've seen blowing so far are some light objects like pieces of cardboard.
Yeah, something we'll be watching for is definitely that debris from prior storms like Helene. Those projectiles, they can be thrown real quick. Fox Weather storm specialist Mike Seidel, thank you. It's not just the Gulf side, though. Let's take it to the east.
You've seen it all. We were just talking with Robert Ray over on the opposite side of Tampa Bay down in Bradenton, and the wind gusts were extreme. It appears like the area dodged where you are in Madeira Beach, coastal Pinellas, the worst of the surge, thankfully, especially after Helene. But you've got this rain and you've got these big wind gusts.
Yeah, we still have that, and that big wind gust has forced me to come in to a very safe spot, a safer spot. I'm now under the hotel we're staying in because I believe that's from the top of the hotel. There's a rooftop bar and pool up on the top, the 7 or 8 floors up, and I believe that's where this blew down in about 10 minutes ago. Some of these wind gusts over 90 miles an hour. Remember, wind increases with height. So you go up to the top of the hotel and it's going to be windier. You just can imagine. And this blew down. It looks like it's a light object. It's not a very heavy object. It's aluminum,
and it looks like some lighting fixture that came off. So it's not a very heavy piece of debris, but it doesn't matter. If that hit me up the side of my head, that would be it. So we're going to stay put right here under the hotel, and that should keep us safe, except from the wind and the rain. The wind is still howling out here, and we're still getting some heavy rainfall, but it's not raining as hard as it was. And if you look on the radar, we're getting into the area now. We're going to see the rain begin to back off a little bit, and the winds too in the next few hours. And you can see the back edge of the rain. So we are certainly through most of the rainfall. We've had anywhere from 7 to 10 inches in this area. Flash flood warning extended till 10:45. So that's how it stands here in Madeira Beach. And as you mentioned, we're doing okay from the surge perspective. The wind is still blowing mostly, it looks like still blowing offshore. And because the center went into our south, that's going to cut way back on those surge forecasts earlier today of 8 to 12 feet.
Yeah, Mike, we were talking about this with Robert Ray, but a great explanation there of, wow, yeah, I hate that sound of that in the background, and I'm glad you're in a safe spot. I saw the beginnings of it myself when I was down there a couple weeks ago during and after Helene. The big debris piles on the Pinellas beaches. It's 35 miles of sandy beaches up and down. There was a lot of cleanup to be done. From what you've been able to tell, have these winds and the rising fresh water been enough to kind of disturb those, to lift up some of that debris or make more of a mess?
You know, it's really hard to say because we have not been able to venture away because of safety reasons, but I'm confident that most of the debris has stayed put because we have this one pile over here and there hasn't been much movement over here. I don't know if we can't see it right now. We'll have to show it to you. We're blocked by the concrete barrier here for safety. But I have to think that most of the debris has stayed put, and there is miles and miles of it. All the neighborhoods have debris up and down the streets from Helene. It was just not enough time to get it all picked up. They did some picking up yesterday. They've been doing that for a while on Gulf Boulevard. That's the main road, but nothing in the neighborhoods, at least in this area. So without the surge, or at least a much lower surge, that helps out things. And the fact that the wind is blowing, I'm sure some of the stuff has been blown around, but a lot of times when you put it in a big pile, when you've got weight on top of it, it packs it down. And we've been following this pile over here, and it pretty much is intact. So despite these winds of 90 miles an hour, we're holding our own tonight, although power outages now here in Pinellas County are up around 40%, and we're now over 1 million customers, I believe about 1.2 million customers in the state of Florida. Not surprising, and those numbers are going to go up as that core continues to move from Tampa along I-4 towards Orlando and Daytona Beach. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel for the wind and rain here in Pinellas County. It's going to be a few more hours, but that'll be it. And we've very fortunate here in Tampa from the surge perspective, but worse than expected, or as expected, south of here from Sarasota down to Fort Myers.
Yeah, Mike, I know you can't see it, but it's exactly the point that you were just making. We've got the power outage map up now, and it's really the spine of the peninsula and points west where we're seeing the big outages outside of the Treasure Coast, and that was related to some of those devastating tornadoes that spun up earlier. We've avoided the surge where you are, but the heaviest of this rain, look at this spike, and that's what Mike was just talking about right there, up into 7 figures now. That's customers without power. Pinellas County, St. Pete, down to Bradenton, where we saw Robert Ray, over to downtown Tampa. These are the major population centers of the region, and they're seeing some of the heaviest rain. How concerned are you, and what are you seeing there related to freshwater flooding? Maybe not as big of a deal out on the beaches, but as you get into some of the more urban areas that don't drain as well, this is a big problem. It's the reason that the emergency was issued.
Yeah, for good reason, and I wouldn't be surprised if there's some, hopefully no water rescues. Everybody should be in their houses tonight if they didn't evacuate, because away from the surge zone, the concern basically is wind. You want to stay away from the windows, and with the freshwater flooding, you just don't know how deep the water is. But in this case, on a night like tonight, it's not like we're dealing with summertime thunderstorms where you don't have to worry about hurricanes and the surge and all the other issues. But in this case, hopefully the storm is keeping people home and off the roadways. I would think so, and that the flash flood emergency would be more of an impactful thing if the water got into people's homes, not so much people driving around and getting caught in a flooded roadway or a river or creek going over a roadway. But you're right, out here, although we've had 8 to 10 inches of rain, once the rain backs off, there's really, we've got an inch or two across the roadway because it continues to rain. But in eyesight, I haven't seen any issues with flash flooding where I'm standing. But again, we are at the beach. Boy, look at that wind gust. Well, that one, that's pretty fresh right there. That's got to be 40, 50 miles an hour right there.
Yeah, you got that cart blowing behind you too. So yeah, I'm glad you're back in that sheltered area. There's certainly stuff moving around.
That. No, yeah, we're staying put. No, I'm no cowboy. I've been through enough of these. I don't put myself. I try to lower the risk as much as possible and keep the only thing hitting me is wind and rain and sea foam. But boy, this wind is blowing around stuff. You can see things. Now the stuff blowing around in the background, that's styrofoam for the most part. Styrofoam and paper. So it looks impressive, but that's just right there, that's just styrofoam. But look at the wind over there now. And I think we're starting to get some change in wind direction from what I can see from the way the palm trees are moving. I'm going to check it out once we get off air and give you an idea next time we talk.
Sounds good, Mike. We'll let you go. We're going to head back over to the other side of the bay, but we'll be checking back in. Fox Weather Storm Specialist Mike Seidel, thank you. Beach, Florida. That's where we find Fox Weather Storm Specialist Mike Seidel. Mike, Pinellas County has really, you talked about how they dodged the surge with this one, but they've got all the rest of the worst.
Yeah, we've had those triple-digit wind gusts. We've had up to 18 inches of rain. And now we have a fire underway in the distance. It's not that far away. I think you can see it on camera, the glow, and you can almost see some flames. You can smell the smoke over here. It can't even be more than a mile away, and it looks like it's getting worse. I don't know if there's any firefighters over there at this point. We've heard no sirens. As you know, most of the emergency responders, they were pulled off the roadway, off the highway, and because of the danger, because of Milton earlier this evening. And so I'm not sure if that's just burning unattended or not. We just wanted to show that to you. One of the effects, sometimes you get these fires caused by the winds, electrical fires typically, and because of the situation and because the response is not immediate because of the hurricane impact and the danger, that's what you have. But you can smell the smoke where we're standing here just off Madeira Boulevard. So just one of the aspects of the hurricane. Meanwhile, we have some debris around, but it's not widespread. We had part of the roof of something up on the top of the hotel where we're staying come down. But the big story tonight has been the fact that we haven't had any surge. And if we have any, it's going to be very, very minor. Certainly nothing like they had with Helene. So all that debris that's piled everywhere around this area, especially in the neighborhood streets, has remained put. At least it hasn't floated away. There has been enough wind to blow some of it, but most of it's piled and wet and heavy, and that helps keep it in one spot. So Ian, the rain, the wind, the big story, the surge turning out not to be much of anything, thankfully, but it has turned out to be higher than expected this time yesterday, down to our south from Sarasota down to the southwest coast of Florida.
I know you experienced Ian down there, and this is nothing, of course, not to even compare the storms, but the Caloosahatchee River.
Not even close.
Right where Brandy is 5.1 feet. If it wasn't in the context of something like Ian, that's enough of a water rise on the Caloosahatchee to get it up into major flood stage.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was for Ian because it's been 2 years, and but I was there right at the Caloosahatchee going into the bay there, right at the causeway to Fort Myers Beach, and it was incredible. 5 hours, 6 hours in the eye wall, just a roaring, buzzing wind sound. Certainly nothing like we had here tonight. That certainly ranks as one of my, I'd say the top tropical storm hurricane that I've covered over my career, Ian, as far as the ferocity, the impact, and just the natural sounds you heard from that hurricane. We didn't have anything like that here tonight.
Yeah, and we're thankful for that. But all the while, we look at the tornadoes, the wind, and the freshwater flooding, and we've got more issues to contend with even through the overnight hours. That's Fox Weather Storm Specialist Mike
Yes, indeed.
Seidel. Thank you.